What is the deepest desire of your heart? I don't mean like, what do you want for your birthday or for Christmas? I mean that desire which is infused in every cell of your body, your very nature. It is the taproot for all that you want in life. What is this driving force in your heart that constantly, every day, seeks satisfaction? Many have never pondered that question. Knowing the correct answer is extremely important, for it gives you the key to unlock everything you could possibly want in life. It can enable you to achieve all that your Creator designed you to become. Your attempts to satisfy this basic craving explains the motivations for all that you think, say, and do. Sounds pretty important to me. This desire is so strong that when deprived of it, newborn babes have died soon after birth. The power of this craving in your nature remains strong throughout your life and is the determining factor of how happy or sad you will be. It is astonishing that most people do not know what their most basic need is in their human nature. Do you? Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines nature this way, quote, the inherent character or basic constitution of a thing, or that is of a person or a thing, end quote. Okay, that sounds good. But what is the inherent character or basic constitution of mankind? The dictionary continues on giving what I think best describes nature when it is defined as, quote, a creative and controlling force in the universe, end quote, and as, quote, an inner force such as instinct, appetite, desire, or the sum of such forces in an individual, end quote. How interesting. My take on this definition is this. God is the creative and controlling force in the universe. He is what you were created to need in order to find perfect peace and satisfaction. But the question then comes, well, what exactly is the inner force that drives the needs and desires of the heart of every individual on earth? I believe the paradise Adam and Eve lost is what we are seeking to regain. The purpose for our nature is to drive us to our Creator, who is all we really need. The problem is, you and I were not born with the knowledge of how to achieve this. However, we spend our entire lifetime searching for it, so it sounds pretty important to me. Robert Ardrey, in his book, The Territorial Imperative, describes man's vain attempts to fulfill his needs this way, quote, I feel a restiveness in men. It is a dissatisfaction of a universal sort. And later he says, its outlets are frequently senseless. Its displays lack definition. It is unease, unaware, demand undeclared, the hunger of a man who opens the refrigerator door and finds nothing that he really wants, and closing the door goes back to bed, end quote. Some noted scholars in our psychological sciences have correctly identified this need. Famed psychiatrist Dr. William Glasser, in his book Reality Therapy, states, no one seriously disputes that in all cultures and in all degrees of civilization, men have the same essential needs. It is also generally accepted that needs do not vary with age, sex, or race. A Chinese infant girl has the same needs as a Swedish king, end quote. Well, what is this void in the heart of mankind that he is continually seeking and searching to fulfill? Dr. Glasser expressed his answer this way, quote, "First is the need to love and be loved in all its forms, ranging from friendship through mother love, family love, and conjugal love. This need drives us to continuous activity in search of satisfaction," end quote. Now he goes on to reiterate from, quote, "From birth to old age, we need to love and be loved. Throughout our lives, our health and our happiness will depend upon our ability to do so. To either love or to allow ourselves to be loved is not enough. We must do both," end quote. This need apparently is so powerful in all of us that psychologist claims that a lack of love is the cause of all human problems. Dr. Glasser writes, quote, "When we cannot satisfy our local need, our total need for love, we will without fail suffer and react with many familiar psychological symptoms, from mild discomfort through anxiety and depression to complete withdrawal from the world around us," end quote. Other great names in psychological studies of the mind have agreed. Famed psychiatrist Dr. Carl Menninger said, quote, "Love is the basic need of human nature, for without it, life is disrupted emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically." Dr. Menninger proclaims, quote, "If we can love enough, this is the touchstone. This is the key to the entire therapeutic program of the modern psychiatric hospital." He goes on to say, "Love is the medicine for the sickness of the world," end quote. Wow, quite a statement. Sounds like love is just pretty important. According to his definition, I'd say the world is very sick indeed today and in great need of a great deal of love. Now, psychiatrist Dr. Peter Breggin wrote on his website, breggin.com, BREGGIN.com, under the title of, quote, "Are emotional disorders really disorders of love?" End quote. Good question. He said, quote, "I now want to boil down the role of love in our lives into a simple observation. Nearly all human personnel or emotional success depends upon being able to give and to accept love. And nearly all human personal failures reflects an inability to do so," end quote. A little later he says, quote, "Nearly all emotional disorders are disorders of love, and we heal from these disorders to the degree that we learn to give and accept love," end quote. American psychoanalyst and philosopher Erich Fromm, in his book, The Art of Loving, said, the book was The Art of Loving, gave a clue, and he gave a dire warning, actually, to our world. If it eventually fails to fulfill its basic love needs. He tells what he thinks is the end result of that. He says, quote, "This desire for interpersonal fusion, which is love," is what he's talking about here, "is the most powerful striving in man. It is the most fundamental passion. It is the force which keeps the human race together, the clan, the family, society," end quote. A bit later he adds, "The failure to achieve it means insanity or destruction, self-destruction, or destruction of others. Without love, humanity could not exist for a day," end quote. Love is indeed what the world needs now, isn't it? Dr. Fromm adds, "If it is true, as I have tried to show, that love is the only sane and satisfactory answer to the problem of human existence, then any society which excludes relatively the development of love must in the long run perish of its own contradiction with the basic necessities of human nature," end quote. Wow. Can we extrapolate from that that mankind could completely, potentially perish from this earth because of his failure to love? Well, that is exactly what the scriptures predict will happen unless true love comes to this earth. Armageddon is fast approaching this earth because of man's brand of fake love. Scripture describes the kind of fake love covering the earth today. It is the sure recipe for eventual worldwide destruction of all life on earth. God's word says, quote, "In the last days, terrible times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, without love of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power," end quote. Wow, what a quote. They are lovers of everything except God, who is love. God, that's what God is. God is love and the only source of all true love. Indeed, what the world needs to avoid total destruction, and it is going to happen because there is not the love of God to prevent it. His special and unique kind of love only he can give. 1 John 4 and verse 16 says that God is love. Jesus Christ is the force that created the universe. And he said, speaking of the day he would return to earth, that, quote, "At that time there will be great tribulation, unmatched from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be seen again. If those days had not been cut short, nobody would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, that is the Christians, those days will be cut short," end quote. Now Jesus also said, quote, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. At that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other." End quote. Now, the armies of the earth will gather and unite in an effort to fight and destroy God's angelic army at the Battle of Armageddon. What the world will view as a hostile alien invasion will be the coming of Christ to stop mankind from committing worldwide mass suicide and to make available his true love, which will fill full mankind's deepest desires. After saving mankind and total destruction of the earth, Christ will set up his righteous kingdom on earth for the next 1,000 years to rule and offer mankind his love, which is their heart's deepest desire. It's interesting to note that the creative force and controlling force in the universe that Merriam-Webster's dictionary spoke of earlier will, because of God's great love, intervene and keep mankind from destroying himself. Dr. Breggin correctly realizes the source of and the solution to all of our love needs. He says, quote, "Love and empathy are the key to our social nature. Across psychological, spiritual, and political spectrums, many thoughtful people have concluded that love and its expression as empathy are the central principles of living a good and productive life. Historically, the importance of love and empathy had its initial and perhaps still fullest expression in the teaching of Christ: to love God, to love one another, and to follow the golden rule to treat others as we would want them to treat us." End quote. Now, there are two basic kinds of love in this universe. Only one is true love. The other is a fake. This fake love is at best a self-love. The true love is that of God's love. God is love, and God's love is unconditional, and Satan's love is the conditional fake love. God's love is based on selfless, outgoing love and concern for others. Satan's self-love is the only kind of love available to mankind without God. It says, in essence, quote, "I love me first and will only love you because you are useful to me," end quote. One love is based upon what God is, and the other is based upon what Satan is. You can call them both love, but only God's love and its expression is real, true love, and therefore is the only love that can truly satisfy all your desires. This kind of love is impossible without Christ. Christ is the missing key to unlock the love your heart desperately needs and yearns for. What the world needs now is God's love, God's kind of love. Mankind without Christ has no access to God's kind of love. Although the nature of mankind wants and desperately needs love, without God, he does not know what true love is or how to obtain it. Therefore, man is constantly seeking and searching in all of his endeavors to satisfy his unquenchable thirst for love. I submit to you that God is the creative and controlling force in the universe, and that he put in the heart of every person a natural instinct and craving for what he is, which is love. This desire for God's love is that what the basic nature of man hungers for. It is the driving force in every heart. It is the motivating factor for all your thoughts and activities, be they good or bad. Only God's Spirit can fill and completely satisfy the love void in your heart. In short, God is love, and every man, woman, and child, from the time they are conceived in the womb, needs and desires God's love and attention throughout their life cycle. The entire history of mankind has, in short, been displayed by our overwhelming desire for the love of God and our continual desperate searching for it. God is the utopian state for which all peoples, nations, religions, and secular ideologies, past and present, have striven to find. My book, How to Build the Mind of God, shows you how to receive and satisfy all the desires of your heart and how to achieve the unbelievably great destiny God desires for you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate a like. Until next time, this is David Carley saying, may God bless and keep you safe.